Ganya Gana Gotra Galoruharam Goranga Gudatama Gopyara Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Retidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami. Okay, why don't we go ahead and start with our Mangala Charana. And let's see. Leela Purushottam, would you like to recite the Sanskrit? And Jai Gora, would you like to read the English, please? We'll put this on the screen. Leela Purushottam, are you there?
He's on the train.
Oh, okay. How about Tirtha Karpa? Would you like to recite the Sanskrit?
Yes, I can do that. Om Ajnatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti Namine.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at His lotus feet.
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirviśeṣa Shunyavadi Paschatile Shatarine.
Our respectful obeisances are unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Saraswati Goswami. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev and delivering the Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva patanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls.
Shri Chaitanya manobhishtam yana bhutale swayamrupakram ahyam dadati svapadantikam.
When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet?
Andeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Paragamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswamis. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates Sri Lalita and Vishaka.
Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha.
O most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself, appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani, and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you.
Ajanulam Tabujau Kanakavadadatau Sankirtanaika Pitarau Kamalaya Taksau Visvambarau Dvijavarau Yugadharma Palau Vande Jagat Priyakarau Karunavatarau.
I worship their lordships, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, whose long arms extend down to their knees, whose beautiful complexions are radiant yellow like molten gold, and whose elongated eyes are like red lotuses. They are the topmost Brahmins, the guardians of religious principles for this age, the most munificent benefactors of all living entities, and the most compassionate incarnations of Godhead. They initiated the congregational chanting of the names of Lord Krishna.
Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute.
O my dear Krishna, O ocean of mercy, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
Aptakanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya.
I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna.
Shirataratam Nijaguptavitam Swapremanamamritam Atyudaraha Apamaram Yovitatara Gauraha Krishno Janevyastam Aham Prapadye.
The most munificent Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Gaura Krishna, distributed to everyone, even the lowest of men, his own confidential treasury in the form of the nectar of love of himself and the holy name. This was never given to the people at any time before. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Uttammadama Kichuna Bachilayachiya Dilaka Kola Kahe Premananda Emana Gauranga Hridayad Hariya Bola Acha Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gauranga Namare Yejana Gauranga Bhajase Haya Amara Pranare.
Never discriminating who was a fit candidate, elevated or degraded, the son of Mother Shachi magnanimously accepts one and all onto his lap in a loving embrace, crying, "Come to my fold, come to my fold." The poet Premananda Das begs you all to constantly chant the sweet name of Krishna while holding tightly to that son of Mother Shachi in the innermost core of your heart. Worship Gauranga. Speak about Gauranga. Oh, please take to Gauranam. Whoever worships Gauranga is my life and soul.
Nandalila Maya Vigrahaya Ema Bhadivya Chavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste.
O Lord Chaitanya Chandra, O Lord whose form is full of blissful pastimes, O Lord whose complexion is as splendid as gold, O Lord who gives in charity the nectar of pure love for Krishna, for Lord Krishna, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. So we can also recite this prayer to Narottam Das Thakur. Shri Krishna Nama Amrita Bhaishi Vaktra Chandra Prabhadvasthatamo Buraya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Tasmai Namo Mama Shri Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He is a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev. The nectarian shower of the holy name of Krishna radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. So today we're going on to another verse in Prema-bhakti-candrika. This is the second chapter, still in the seventh verse. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and put this on the board. Oops. Verse. hṛsīke govinda-sevā na pūjiba devī-devā eta ananya-bhakti-kathā jata upālambha viśeṣa sakali dambha dekhite lāgaye vyathā. So Narottam Das Thakur says that hṛsīke govinda-sevā. Narottam Das Thakur has already explained how we should engage all of our senses in Krishna's service. And in this verse, he's further explaining that if we don't do that, then we're going to be in trouble. Hṛsīke govinda-sevā. I should engage all my senses. Hṛsīka also means Hrishikesh, who's the Lord of the senses, in Govinda, who's also the Lord of the senses. In Govinda, I should do service. Na pūjiba devī-devā. And again he says, I shouldn't worship the devis or devis. Ta ananya-bhakti-kathā. And I should just only take shelter of topics of ananya-bhakti. Very, very important point. Jata upālambha viśeṣa sakali dambha. If I don't do that, anything other than that, jata upālambha, they're just upālambha, all those things, they're useless things, they're condemned things. Viśeṣa sakali dambha, they're just all those other subjects are just topics of pride. Dekhite lāgaye vyathā. And it just causes great pain to me to see those things. So when we see devotees taking shelter of other subjects, because there's always problems in this world, and some people, depending on the mode of nature that they have, they're going to offer different solutions for different problems. And some will offer political solutions. They'll say that the problem is that there's so many Democrats, and the Democrats are all demons, and everybody should become a Republican. Even devotees sometimes say that. Or sometimes that they may say that we should have education, which is more in the mode of goodness. Or some devotees will say that what we need is more money. Some may say we need better management. We need to root out all the child molesters and problems in this society. But Narottam Das Thakur, he says, jata upālambha viśeṣa sakali dambha. All those things, other than ananya-bhakti-kathā, pure hari-katha, all those things, they're just sakali dambha. They're just simply pride. Because in either a subtle or a gross way, all those other so-called solutions are all based upon myself as being able to solve the problems. But the Bhagavatam in the 11th canto, I'm trying to remember the verse, it describes that it's not coming to my mind, that the nature of material solutions is that they'd pariyat paka viparyasam. That whatever material solutions we take shelter of, they just cause more problems. So we may think it's a good solution, it's an important thing. We have to do this political thing. We have to drive out bad managers. We have to promote nice dealings with devotees. We should promote loving dealings. That's a very important thing. It's certainly in the mode of goodness. But if it's not dealing with ananya-bhakti-kathā, then Narottam says it's sakali dambha. It's just full of pride. And dekhite lāgaye vyathā. Whenever he sees such a thing, it just causes him pain in his heart, because it's not going to solve the problem. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was given commentary on Prema-bhakti-candrika. He gives a very short commentary on these verses. He says, Devi paryataya deva rudayaya. That we shouldn't take shelter of different devatas, including Parvati and Lord Shiva. So Narottam Das Thakur is teaching us that we have to be very careful when we're coming to bhakti. It shouldn't be a casual thing, implicitly he's saying, but we should understand that if we want proper success, then we want ananya-bhakti-kathā. We want pure bhakti-kathā. And that doesn't mean that oh, I'm an uttamadhikari. It doesn't mean that we're criticizing other people. It just means this is the medicine. Someone may, it's not that we criticize a patient in the hospital. Oh, why you're only insisting on taking medicine? Why you're not taking any fried foods? You're just a fanatic. and the poor patient says, but I have problems with my liver. I'll die if I eat fried foods. The doctors have told me, oh, you're just a fanatic. No, this is just sanity. It doesn't mean that someone's necessarily an elevated devotee because they're taking pure shelter of bhakti. It does, in another sense, mean that they're elevated devotees. It means that they're pure devotees inasmuch as they're only taking shelter of bhakti. And even though they may have other different material desires, they may not be ananya to bhaktas in that sense, but because ananya-bhakti-kathā, they're just taking shelter of that. And this is what we agree when we take shelter of Gurudev, that I'm going to take pure shelter of the instructions of Gurudev, and nothing else comes to my mind. And sometimes that manifests in funny ways. There's a letter I'd like to share with you. It's a very long letter from Srila Prabhupada. I'm just going to show you a little part of it and make some comments on it. Let's see, Ujjwala Rasikya, can you read? Are you you're in the hospital? Is she still here? I think she had to go. Okay. I'll go ahead and read some myself. So this is a letter to Lynn Ludwig in California. It was written on April 30th, 1973. And Prabhupada got a letter from her where she is complaining. And you can see it, we have highlighted here in yellow. Your complaint is you've met two of my young disciples in California, and they appear to you as having a, quote, very negative outlook toward the people they meet. Of course, I do not know the case. What are the circumstances? But kindly forgive my beloved disciples any unkindness or indiscretions on their part. After all, to give up one's life completely for serving the Lord is not so easy a thing. And Maya, or the illusory material energy, she tries especially hard to try to get back and entrap those who have left her service to become devotees. So sometimes in the neophyte stage of devotional service, in order to withstand the attack of Maya and remain strong under all conditions of temptation, young or inexperienced devotees will adopt an attitude against those things or persons possibly harmful, threatening to their tender devotional creeper. They may even overindulge in such feelings just to protect themselves, and thus they will appear to some non-devotees who are perhaps themselves still very enamored by the material energy of Maya as being negative or pessimistic. And going down a few paragraphs later, Prabhupada says, you refer to the word love several times in your letter, but the actual fact is there's no love in this material world. That is false propaganda. What they call love here is lust only, desire for personal sense gratification. So as we often point out when mentioning this letter from Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada speaking to this non-devotee girl, but it's not that Srila Prabhupada doesn't consider there's anything such as love. Prabhupada came to the Western countries to give love. If there's no such thing as love, no possibility of love here, then how is it that we have the Krishna consciousness movement? There would be no meaning for it. We don't want to live in the material world, we want to live in the spiritual world. The Prabhupada's pointing out that in the material world, what we call love is just lust. And then Prabhupada goes on a little later, another few paragraphs. The letter is like, 3 or 4 pages long. Such a devotee, no matter he has not yet advanced to the highest level of spiritual understanding, still, he's to be considered the most exalted personality. Never mind he has got any temporary frailties. And Prabhupada quotes a famous verse in Bhagavad Gita 9:30. Apichet sudharacharu bhajati mo ananya-bhakti-kathā sadareva samantavya samyag yagasito hisaha. Quote, even if a devotee commits the most abominable actions, he's to be considered saintly because he's properly situated. As you will say, quote, to err is human, end quote. So in the neophyte stage, we may always expect some discrepancies are there. Kindly see the things in this light and forgive their small mistakes. The big thing is that they've given their life, everything to Krishna. That is never a mistake. A beautiful letter from Srila Prabhupada. And it's something we've seen so many times in our society. And sometimes we have very little patience for that. Because such people, sometimes they're fanatics and they cause a lot of problems in the society. But Srila Prabhupada is seeing him in a very sympathetic way. I'll share with you a cartoon that was done by my friend Guru Nishta Prabhu. This is a new bhakta who's suddenly reached an advanced stage of contemplation. I despise the world, I despise Maya, I despise weakness, I despise lust, I despise women, I despise speculation. So he's thinking in this way that I'm making some advancement. But it's not advancement, but in another sense, it's some kind of advancement because he's trying. And we shouldn't be angry or critical of that. We should be supportive. There's an important verse which appears in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, in the first section of Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu. I'd like to read this to you in a little something from Jiva Goswami's commentary. He says, Tatrapi cha viśeṣena gatim anvim anichitaha bhakti hrita mana pranan premnanatan kulute janan. So the verse speaks about how bhakti takes possession of the mind and the senses. Bhakti hrita mana pranan premnanatan kulute janan. That we should know that this is prema. Through this prema, bhakti hrita mana prana, it takes possession, it steals away hrita, the mind, the prana, the senses of those devotees who are not desiring liberation. And Jiva Goswami comments in his purport, he says that these processes, they take possession, the processes of bhakti, of hearing and chanting, they take possession of the devotee's mind and senses, prana, through the influence of prema. And he says that means that their mind and senses become bhakti. The mind and senses become bhakti, influenced by prema. But this takes place when, as Narottam Das Thakur is teaching us, hṛsīke govinda-sevā na pūjiba devī-devā ete ananya-bhakti-kathā, that we take shelter of bhakti with all of our senses. And I'd like to speak a little something today about how we can engage all the different senses. We can start with a story which we printed in issue 459 of our Krishna Katamrita Bindu, which is taken from chapter 18 of Nityananda Das's Prema-vilasa. And it's an appropriate story, I think, because it's speaking about a disciple of Narottam Das Thakur. We can relate to that. But we can even more relate because this disciple was a really, really wicked person. His name was Chanda Ray, and he was a huge demon. He had, they say in Nityananda Das and Prema-vilasa says that Chitragupta went to Jamaraj to complain. He said, look, I don't have enough people in my department to write down all the sinful things that Chanda Ray and his brother are doing. Previously, we had these two really bad guys named Jagai and Madai, but this Chanda Ray and his brother, they're much, much worse. They've raped all the young women, they stole money, they've murdered people, they've killed animals, they've done so many terrible things. So it's a long story, but Chanda Ray becomes possessed by a Brahma Rakshasa ghost, and his father was told by Durga Devi that only if you take shelter of Narottam Das Thakur can he be delivered. And so he sent for Narottam, long story, Narottam came, and he delivered Chanda Ray, and he gave him initiation. I think his name was Krishna Das, as I recall. And so he was a devotee now. But the Muslim ruler, who was used to him being a demon, Chanda Ray being a demon, didn't understand that. Just like sometimes someone takes to the process of bhakti, but their previous friends remember their behavior and they don't see them in a saintly way at all. So the Muslim king, one day he found out that Chanda Ray was there on the bank of the Ganga with a few associates, and he sent some of his army to capture him. And they had him beaten with a whip, and then he took and put him in a terrible prison. So meanwhile, he's in prison, and Raghavendra Roy, the father of Chanda Ray, found out that his dear son was in prison, and he became full of anxiety. And it's interesting to me because Raghavendra Roy, at this point, had become a Vaishnava. He'd also taken shelter of Narottam Das Thakur. But apparently from the story, we can understand that Raghavendra Roy, he wasn't seeing bhakti as a solution. And he was thinking, what am I going to do? My God. He didn't think I should talk to Narottam Das Thakur about it. He didn't think I should do more bhajan, pray to Krishna. He thought, we got to do something. So he sent out a message, public message, that whoever can get my son out of prison will give him a big reward. We'll give him villages and horses and so much wealth and things. And so one day, there's one tantric person who came to him and said, I know how to get your son out of prison. I can do that. And so that person, he knew about an underground tunnel that went to the prison of this Muslim ruler. And he went to that underground tunnel, and suddenly he arrived in the prison cell where Chanda Ray was being held. And Chanda Ray was very astonished. How did you get here? And he told him, your father sent me, and you come with me and we can get you out. And I said, well, that's really amazing. He said, no problem. I can get you out. He said, but this tunnel is very, very dangerous. There's many scorpions, there's cobras there. Also, if you're not very quiet, the guards may hear something. So you have to chant this mantra to Goddess Kali. If you chant this mantra to Goddess Kali, then everything will be okay. So when Chanda Ray heard that, and Chanda Ray, as I mentioned, was not the most sattvic person from his background, but now he'd become a devotee of Narottam Das Thakur. He'd taken initiation. And when he heard that, he told that tantric, it's described in Prema-vilasa, he said to him, Thakura Mahashaya Padadila Mora Mate, Teno Prabhu Mui Britya Kahila Matote, Kripa Kori Radha Krishna Mantra Dila Kane, Anya Mantra Shuniba Dik Rahuk Jivane, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He says that Thakur Mahashoy, Padadila, More Mate, he put his head on my feet. Teno Prabhu Mui Britya, he made me his servant. I'm his Britya. Kripa Kori, by his mercy, Radha Krishna Mantra Dilakani, he gave this Radha Krishna mantra in my ear. Anya Mantra Shunibe, Dik Rahuk Jivane. To hell with any other mantras. Dik means to hell with. I won't accept any other mantras in my life. So this is what Narottam Das Thakur is teaching us in this verse, that we should have this kind of dedication, this kind of ananya consideration, this hari-katha. We should have so much faith in what Gurudev is teaching me that I'm not going to take shelter of anything else hṛsīke govinda-sevā na pūjiba devī-devā eta ananya-bhakti-kathā. I'm not going to do puja to any devis and devas. I can't say how many times I've seen devotees. A few times myself, I've gone out of some curiosity to some devotee astrologer or somebody telling me, I'll do your chart. And you go to them and they tell you, oh, Prabhu, you're in a Saturn period or Rahu period, and you should chant this mantra. You should wear a gemstone. You chant this mantra, and everything will be okay. And then maybe you say, but you know, I thought I should be chanting Hare Krishna. No, that's okay. It's just like taking medicine. You take medicine if you're sick. It's not that you should be fanatical. And they may speak like it, but this is a different kind of medicine. That medicine that we normally take, you may take some Triphala or some aspirin or whatever, but you're not doing some puja to some other personality. We're not taking shelter of them. And therefore, the Padma Purana describes 10 different offenses to the holy name, the 8th of which is Dharma Brata Tyaga Hutari Sava Shubha Kriya Samyam Api Pramada. That when you start chanting Hare Krishna, you fall into a different category. When you take shelter of Guru, it says these things are not good. Dharma means Vanashram Dharma, means proper behavior. Brata, performing some austerities and sacrifices. Tyaga, giving things up. Huta Adi, doing fire sacrifices. Subha Kriya Samyam, Subha Karma, that I'm doing some pious activities, giving feeding the charity, giving charity to Brahmins or saintly persons or whatever. Those are good things. But this verse in the Padma Purana says that if you start doing that after you become a devotee, thinking that Shubha Kriya Samyam, that these things are also on the level of chanting Hare Krishna, that's an aparad. Because now you're in a different category. If you're going to take shelter of Gurudev, we have to take shelter in this way, which Narottam Das Thakur is saying this. hṛsīke govinda-sevā, that I engage all my senses in the service of Govinda. Na pūjiba devī-devā. I don't worship any temple managers. I don't worship any institutional authorities. I don't worship any devas or devas. We spoke about this at length before. I'm just taking shelter. Ananya-bhakti-kathā, a pure hari-katha. And because I'm doing that, I respect the devis and devas, and I certainly respect the managers in an institution who are pushing on bhakti, but it doesn't mean that I'm worshiping them. Anywhere I see that someone is practicing pure bhakti or pure bhakti-katha is there, that I take shelter of. I'm very, very happy to see that. But dekhite lāgaye mane vyathā. If I don't see that, if I see some other thing, taking shelter, some other idea, then I feel great pain in my heart, Narottam says. So Chanda Ray, he said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. He said, why is my father giving instructions like this? I took shelter of Narottam Das Thakur. I'm going to chant the mantra that my Gurudev has given me. Why is he saying like this? And Chanda Ray said, actually, this prison is very nice because when I'm out of prison, Chanda Ray was something, he had something of a manager. He had several villages under his control. Many people come to me with problems and politics and things. But here it's really nice. Okay, there's nothing to eat. I have to fight with the cockroaches and the rats over something to eat. But it's nice because nobody's coming and complaining. There's no distractions. And so he just took shelter of the songs of Narottam Das Thakur. And he just sang them and he just prayed and cried to Krishna. And he felt this is such a nice thing. One day, that Nawab, that Muslim ruler, was becoming very annoyed because he was expecting that Raghavendra Roy was going to try to bribe him. Chanda Ray would try, he would offer him some money, my father will pay you something. So one day the Nawab, he went to Chanda Ray in the prison. He said, what's going on? You haven't offered me any bribe. You're a rascal, nonsense person. Now you're going to die. And so he ordered that Chanda Ray be tied up, his hands and legs tied up, and brought into a public arena. And they had one mad elephant, which was brought there. And they put that mad elephant in the arena with Chanda Ray. And that mad elephant came running at Chanda Ray, and Chanda Ray just stood there, completely peaceful. What was he doing? Eta ananya-bhakti-kathā. He was just meditating on the prayers of his Gurudev, Radha Krishna Pranamur Jugala Kishore, Jivane Marane Gati Arunahi More. That in my life or death, the only thing that's important to me is bringing Radha and Krishna together. That's my life and soul. And he's meditating on that. And this huge, it's not very practical, you may say. This huge elephant's running at him to kill him. The elephant picks him up and throws him down on the ground. And at that time, the ropes broke on Chanda Ray. And then, meditating on Narottam Das Thakur, he was inspired in his heart. And again, when the elephant came running at him, suddenly Chanda Ray jumped up and he grabbed a hold of the trunk of the elephant and he ripped the trunk off the elephant's body. And the elephant screamed and fell over dead. And everybody was very quiet. And the Nawab was watching all this. This was his entertainment. He said, wow. He said, come here, have a seat next to me. He said, I didn't understand what a powerful person you are. You killed this elephant with your bare hands. And Chanda Ray said, no, Krishna Das actually his name then. He said, it wasn't by my power that I did this. It was just by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj. Mukam karoti vachalam bhangam lāgaye tegaram yakripatamaham banishu gurum dinataranam. That by the mercy of Gurudev, a blind man can see, a lame person who can't walk can suddenly climb mountains. And the Nawab was very curious and will tell me about your guru. And Krishna Das Chanda Ray told him that. He said that when you first put me in the prison, I tried not to feel sorry for myself. And it wasn't easy. And I tried to remember the mercy of my Gurudev. And you weren't feeding me anything. It was very, very hard. But I just tried to take shelter of the holy name and instructions of my Gurudev. Eta ananya-bhakti-kathā, as Narottam Das Thakur says here in Prema-bhakti-candrika. I was meditating on the instructions of my Gurudev. And then I felt very peaceful and happy. And there was no problem. And then when you put me in this arena with the elephant, when the elephant came to kill me, then I had some power from my Gurudev. So this is all the mercy of my Gurudev. And then Nawab, when he heard that, he was very, very impressed. And he fell down on the ground and offered his obeisances to Chanda Ray. And then he ordered that someone to bring a very expensive horse and give that as reward for Chanda Ray. And then he told Chanda Ray that you're free to go home. And he returned all of his properties and things to him and told his ministers that you cooperate with Chanda Ray. And he gave some letter to Chanda Ray, so now the guards won't bother you when you're going back home. But Chanda Ray, when he got this letter, he was thinking, why should I go home? I should go see Gurudev. So instead of going home, he went to Kuturigram. And he went straight to the residence of his Gurudev. And when he arrived there, he found Narottam Das Thakur seated with his dear friend Ramachandra Kaviraj, Ramachandra Sangamage, Narottam Das, Narottam sings. And Chanda Ray, Krishna Das, fell down at his feet and cried. And Narottam was happy to see him and asked him what had happened. And Krishna Das, Chanda Ray explained the whole situation. And Narottam Das Thakur became so pleased with his disciple that he put his feet on his head. And by this time, his father, Radhavendra Roy, and his brother, Santosh Roy, they arrived there. And and they embraced each other. And happy to. And then Chanda Ray, Krishna Das, he turned to his father. He said, "Father, why did you do that? Why did you send that person to me, that tantric, in jail? Didn't you know that was wrong? I got mantra from Gurudev. We shouldn't take shelter of anything else." And Raghavendra Roy, his father, then became very humbled. So bhakti manifests in the senses of the devotees, and I'd like to read you a few examples of that, how we should take shelter of bhakti with all of our senses. There's a beautiful verse Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has written in Govinda Lilamrita. Gokulaya Gokulam Ninye Gokulam Gokulaya Haran Gokulam Gokula Strinam Gokulaya Gokuleshvaraha. Govinda, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is a great, great poet. He says that Gokulaya Gokulam Ninye, that the Lord of Gokul drove his cows Gokul. Gokulam Gokulaya Haran, as he entered Gokul, stealing the senses Gokul, of the young girls of Gokul, and the eyes of the people of Gokul. So Narottam Das Thakur in Prema-bhakti-candrika, he's giving us this instruction. hṛsīke govinda-sevā na pūjiba devī-devā eta ananya-bhakti-kathā. Just engage all your senses in Krishna. Don't take shelter of anything else. Na pūjiba devī-devā. Why he says devī-devā? Because even it means don't take shelter of Krishna's devotees, the demigods who are in charge of the material universe. In other words, don't take shelter of anything in the material universe, any solutions, but simply eta ananya-bhakti-kathā. Just take shelter of pure bhakti. That's not such an easy thing for us to do. It may be theoretical, just like the letter Srila Prabhupada wrote to that Mataji. But nevertheless, we have to engage in this, and we should know this philosophy. The Narada Pancharatra gives an important verse which Rupa Goswami quotes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam taprat vinirmalam rishikena hṛsīke sevanam bhakti uchate. He says this, bhakti uchate, this is the definition of bhakti. Bhakti means sarvapadi vinirmuktam taprat vinirmalam, that we're doing bhakti to Krishna, which is free from any upadis, any material designations, any other desires, and simply we're engaging all of our senses in the service of Krishna. That's bhakti. That we have that faith, that if I do that, that everything will be okay. So this is what Narottam Das Thakur is telling us. hṛsīke govinda-sevā na pūjiba devī-devā. That just engage all your senses in the service of Govinda. Why is he saying Govinda? Because one of the meanings of the word Govinda is the master of the senses. Go means the senses, and Vinda means the master. Or hṛsīke. It's the same kind of meaning. So we have 5 working senses, panchagyan and karmendriya, and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, panchagyanendriya, plus the mind, 11 different senses. And when we render service to Krishna with all those senses, sevanam bhakti uchate, hṛsīkena hṛsīkesha, sevanam bhakti uchate. This is bhakti. When we engage all these senses in Krishna's service. And there's many, many different examples of this. We can share a few things with you. The first is from a beautiful verse which Srila Rupa Goswami has given in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we wrote something about in our magazine on Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyway, he said, Smaram Bhangi Traya Parichitam Sachivistirna Dristim Vangsi Nyastadara Kishalayam Ujvalam Chandrakena Govindakyam Haritanu Mita Kishitirto prakante maprekshistastava yadi saki bandhu sange strirangaha. One Saki, one gopi is telling another one, hey Saki, tava jadi bandhu sange strirangaha. My dear friend, yadi means if, my dear friend, if you want to have some happiness, bandhu sange strirangaha, with your friends and relatives, then don't do it. Don't look at the smiling face of Govinda as he stands on the bank of the Jamuna at Keshi Ghat. Don't see him. On the other hand, the Bhagavatam in the second canto, chapter 3, is described. Baharitite na nayane naranam lingani vishnu nadarikshate jay. That those human eyes which don't see the form of the Lord, they're like the eyes printed on the plumes of a peacock. In Hari-bhakti-sudhodaya, there's a beautiful verse which Prabhupada quotes in his purport to Bhagavatam 2.9.39. akṣnoḥ phalaṁ tvādṛśa darśanaṁ hi tano phalaṁ tvādṛśa gatra sangaha jiva phalaṁ tvādṛśa kirtanam hi sudhodaya bhagavata hi loke. It's a prayer to the Lord. My dear devotee, the purpose of being able to see is fulfilled by seeing you. Akṣnoḥ phalaṁ. The phala means the fruit. Akṣnoḥ, the fruit of seeing, akṣnoḥ, of the eyes. Tvādṛśa darśanaṁ is to have darshan of you. Tanu phalam tvādṛśa gata sangaha. The fruit of the body, the tanu, or the sense of touch. Tvādṛśa gata sangaha is to be able to touch your body. Jiva phalam, the fruit of the tongue. Tadisha kirtanam hi is to speak about the glories of the devotees. Sudurlava bhagavata hi loke. Because in this world, a pure devotee of the Lord is very difficult to find. We found some commentary on this some time back, saying here, akṣnoḥ phalaṁ tadisha darśanam hi, that the sight of a devotee is perfection for the eyes. And the commentary says, tvādṛśanam katanchit tvad anukaranapatam api darśanam evakṣnoḥ phalaṁ. That what to speak of seeing a devotee, seeing an actual devotee, even you just see someone who imitates the feelings or the dress of a devotee. And this is why we like to wear a dhoti. I like wearing a dhoti. I like dressing like a devotee. Not because I am a devotee and not because it's such an important thing in one sense. But when someone sees you dressed like a devotee, that they become happy. So many times, Krishna Govinda and I have experienced, practically every time we fly, we go somewhere, we wear dhoti and sari, people come up to us and say, hey, can you tell me something about Krishna? They become very curious about that. So just what to speak of seeing a devotee, just seeing someone is imitating a devotee or dressing like a devotee. That's the perfection of the eyes. Why? Because we like to remember the Brij Basis. I was thinking that this morning. I was walking here in Debrecen on my way to the Govinda's restaurant to have prasadam this morning. And I was dressed in a dhoti. And I was thinking to myself, it just felt very good. And I was thinking, why does this feel good? Who cares? Because I also feel comfortable wearing pants. Actually, secret, I'm wearing pants right now as I'm giving class. Why does it feel so nice to do that? Because it reminds me of the Brij Basis in Vrindavan. It reminds me of the Dambasis in Jagannath Puri. It reminds me of the culture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And not because it's hearing and chanting, the equivalent of that. And Prabhupada many times he said that it's not required to wear a dhoti or sari. Someone can wear Western clothes. It's not that someone's a devotee just because of the way they dress. We're not so shallow. But when we dress like that, it reminds us of Srila Prabhupada. It reminds us of the Brij Basi devotees. And there's some purification. And some other person just sees a devotee like that. This commentary in Hari-bhakti-sudhodaya explains. that they get the benefit they get perfection with their eyes just by seeing such a devotee. Narottam Das Thakur in Prarthana, he sung a similar thing. Gangara purasa hoile paschate pavan darshane pavitra koro eto maragun. He's saying that there's such a perfection in seeing the devotees. The Ganga, parashohali paschate pavan. If you go to the Ganga, you have to touch the Ganga. You have to take bath. And maybe to become purified, you may have to take bath hundreds of times in the Ganga because we're really messed up in Kali Yuga. But darshane pavitra koro etam maragun. The quality of the devotee is that just by seeing the devotee, just by seeing them, we become purified. So when Narottam Das Thakur is telling us in this verse, hṛsīke, govinda-sevā, he's saying we should engage all of our senses in the service of Govinda. So we should engage our sense of sight. And we engage it by trying to see the deity, by looking at the pictures of Krishna. My Guru Maharaj sometimes he told us you should chant japa in front of the deity, or chant japa in front of a picture of Krishna. Or you see the devotee. We should chant japa with our Gurudev, or chant japa in front of a picture of our Gurudev. We should engage our sense of hearing. The Bhagavatam is a beautiful verse, which my Guru Maharaj often quotes, which I've got here on the board too. This is 177. Yashyam vaishyamanayam Krishna padamapurushe bhakti utpadite pumsa shoka moha bhayapaha. That just by hearing, and by viśeṣa sometimes he comments, he says that you just listen. It's all that you have to do. You just passively listen to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then immediately, yes, Krishna padamapurushe, bhakti for Krishna comes up in the heart. Krishna padamapurushe bhakti utpadite pumsha. This bhakti sprouts up in the heart. And the secondary effect is shoka moha bhayapaha, that fear, lamentation, and illusion, they all go away. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is given a beautiful commentary on this. I've broken it up. You can look at the Sanskrit and the English here. He says, Samhitaya prema sadhana advamaha. This verse shows that this Samhita, this Bhagavatam, directly gives prema. Just hearing this Krishna Katha. Yashyam shriyamana yamaiva. Just by hearing it, this prema arises. Kim means what to speak. Kim puna shrutayam. Then what to speak, the greater effect, if you get other people to hear it. You engage other people. You organize some Bhagavatam classes. You organize some hari-katha when some Maharaj comes, some speaker comes. You organize something. You get even more benefit. And thirdly, then he says, kintadam. Kinta means what to speak. And kintadam kirtyamanayam. Then what to speak? If you speak it, it's nice if you hear hari-katha. Better if you organize some program where other people get to hear hari-katha. But better than that, you speak hari-katha. But even better than that, kintamam. Kinta again means but kintamam kirtitayam. That if you engage other people in speaking it, you encourage other devotees to speak Krishna Katha. Such a very, very important thing. And then Vishwanath, he cites one of the second verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Ishvara sadhyuhu devotee prithibhi shushushibhistak. He says that the Lord, Ishvara sadhyo hridya, hridya means the heart, avarudhyate kritibi, he becomes captured by hearing the Bhagavatam. And he says, but even he becomes captured by someone who just has a desire to hear the Bhagavatam. Even you're not hearing the Bhagavatam. My Guru Maharaj used to comment on this, you just have some desire to hear the Bhagavatam. So powerful it is to hear. So Narottam Das Thakur, he's telling us in this verse, hṛsīke govinda-sevā na pūjiba devī-devā ete ananya-bhakti-kathā. Engage all of our senses in serving Govinda. This is what bhakti is. We want to just do pure bhakti. We don't want to take shelter of any devas or devatas, any other solutions. We want to engage our tongue. In the Bhagavatam, in the 31st chapter, the 10th canto, Uddhava tells Krishna, Itara raga vismaranam nrinam, that if someone takes your remnants of your food stuff, Itara raga, the becoming attached, or other attachments, Itara raga, other attachments that we have, vismaranam nrinam, you'll forget all about all those other attachments. Just always take Krishna Prasadam. Again, in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, again, Uddhava, he tells Krishna, let's see, maybe I can put this on the board here. This is a very, very big subject today. I'm just going to, I don't want to, I'd like to go over all the different senses. Uddhava says, Tvayopa bhukta shraganda vaso lankara charchitaha uchista bojino dasastava mayam jayemahi. That, my dear Lord, if we take those things which are upabhukta, that have already been enjoyed or tasted by you, like the garlands, like the sandalwood paste, like the cloth, your clothes, the alankar, the ornaments and things, which are, or the uchisa, the remnants of your food stuff, and we do that, then definitely, then he says, Tava mayam jayemahi, we're going to conquer over material energy. So we have to engage all of our senses. Hṛsīkena hṛsīkesha sevanam bhakti uchate. This is bhakti. Bhakti means we have to engage all of our services, all of our senses in the service of the Lord. There's many, many things we could say about prasadam. I had some thoughts to speak some things from the Uttarakhanda, the Brahma Purana. There's a beautiful story about how, just to mention how Narad Muni heard about Mahaprasad. But Lakshmi Devi, Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan had told her, don't give this Mahaprasad to anyone. She asked him for it. He said, okay, I'll give it to you, but don't give it to anyone else. So when Narad Muni heard about it, he went to Lakshmi Devi and he started serving her. And he was served in such a nice way for several years. Lakshmi Devi was pleased and she said, well, I want to give you a benediction. What would you like? And Narad Muni says, I'd like some Mahaprasad. And then Lakshmi Devi was in big trouble. She said, oh, what am I going to do? So she went to Lord Vishnu and she said, you told me not to give this to anyone, but then Narad Muni was serving me and I told him I'll give him anything he wants. I promised. And then he's asked me for this thing, which makes me break my promise to you. What should I do? Lord Narayan said, give him Mahaprasad. So then Narad Muni took some of that prasad and he became really ecstatic and he started dancing. And his brother, Lord Shiva, came. And Lord Shiva said, hey, Narad, what's going on with you? He said, oh, I got some Mahaprasad from Lord Narayan. He said, you didn't save any for me? He said, I only looked, there's a little bit here on my fingernail. And he gave some to Lord Mahadev. And then Mahadev started dancing in ecstasy. And Parvati was unhappy about that. She's complained, look, I do everything for you. I'm a good wife. And you're not giving me this prasadam. So this is not right. And then Lord Shiva arranged for her to get prasad. And she made a vow that everyone's going to be able to get Mahaprasad. And that took place here. It took place in Jagannath Puri. It took place here because we're in Jagannath Puri. It looks like we're in Hungary, but we're actually in Jagannath Puri. It took place here in Jagannath Puri. And therefore, Mahaprasad is available for everyone. And therefore, it said, Mahaprasadi Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Swapa Punya Vitam Raja Visvasanaiva Jayate. That someone who doesn't have proper punya, swalpa punya, they just have little punya, they won't have faith in Mahaprasad, in Govinda, in Krishna, in Krishna's name, in the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas. That person's in a very, very sad situation. So we engage our tongue in taking prasadam. We engage our nose in smelling the flowers and oils that have been offered to the Lord. In the third canto of the Bhagavatam, we hear about how the four Kumaras, they smelled the tulsi leaves that were on the lotus feet of the Lord, and they became overwhelmed, and they gave up their attachment to impersonal Brahman. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he comments that this shows that by smelling the prasadam flowers of Krishna, we can get Krishna prema just by smelling those flowers. And again, the third chapter of the Bhagavatam, chapter 3, text 23, describes, I'll put this on the board. Shri Vishnu Padya Manujasthalashaha Swasam Chavo Yastu Naveda Gandham. That's someone who's never gotten the dust of the devotee's feet, and in particular saying here, someone who's never smelled the tulsi leaves from the Lord's lotus feet. That person is a dead body. Sava means a dead body. He may look like he's moving around, may look like he's breathing or something, but he's actually just a dead body. He's a corpse, although he may be breathing. So we want to engage our sense of smell in smelling the flowers and things that have been offered to the Lord. We want to engage our touch. Mahiya samparujo viśeṣa miskinchana vidita, that famous verse in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaji says that we should take the dust from the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. We should touch their feet. We should take that dust and smear it all over our bodies. Again, in the 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam is a famous verse, Jivanchavo Bhagavatangri Renum Najati Marcho Bilaseta Yastu. And there's someone who doesn't take that dust of the lotus feet of the devotees, that person's a living corpse. So we want to engage our touch. We want to engage our tongue, our sense of speech. And there's a beautiful verse in the Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, which I can share with you. It's such a nice verse and such a hopeful verse, where Lord Vishnu is speaking to the devotees. He says, Mat-katha vachaka nityam mat-katha shravane rattam mat-katha pritamana samnaham tvakshami matam naram. He says that mat-katha vachaka nityam, someone who's always speaking about me. Mat-katha shravane rattam, someone who has some rati, some attachment for always hearing about me. Mat-katha pritamanasam, whose minds are always thinking about my katha. Naham tvakshami tam naram, I can't give them up. I can't let them go. They're always speaking about me, they're always hearing about me, their minds are always thinking of me. I can't let them go. So this is what Narottam Das Thakur is telling us in this verse, hṛsīke hṛsīkesha sevanam bhakti uchate, that we should practice bhakti, and that bhakti means hṛsīke govinda-sevā, that we worship the Lord with all of our senses, we worship Govinda. We want to engage our tongue in the Lord's service, we want to engage our hands in the Lord's service. It's said in the Bhagavatam that someone who doesn't serve their hands, they don't serve the body of the deity of the Lord, of the Vaishnava, savo koronar kurute saparayam harer lasat kanchana kankanova, then they have the hands like a corpse. We want to use our feet for the service of the Lord. And the Bhagavatam again says that those feet which don't take us to go to the temple of Lord Jagannath, Tota Gopinath, then those feet are like the roots of trees. And even our anus and genitals, we may think that those can't, we can't use those. We can't directly engage them in the Lord's service, but still they can be helpful. There's a commentary in Yoga Sutras, Utsargan malamutra desh chitta swastam yato bhavet. Atopai yo parushtasasya tad aradhana sadhanam. That by passing stool and urine, the anus and the genitals and the body and the mind, which are the root, utsaragan mala, the root instruments in our spiritual practice, they become healthy and clear. And so then that way, even the anus and the genitals, they help us to worship the Lord. And then there's the mind. Padma Purana says, Smartya Visitatam Vishram Vismarta Vinajati Chit. Out of all the different rules and regulations, just comes down to two things. Always remember Krishna and don't forget Krishna. So this is the instructions from Narottam Das Thakur. We want to use all of our senses in contemplating the Lord. And this is the instruction which Rupa Goswami gives us in the Dagda Madhav, a verse which was written by Rupa Goswami in appreciation of Haridas Thakur, Siddha Bakul. Tunde tandavani ratim vitanute, tundavali lāgaye, karna kroda kadambini gatayate, karnar vidubhya spriham, chaita prangana sangini vijayate, sarvendriyanam kritim, no jane janita kiha virhamritai, krishneti varnadvayi, tunde tandavani ratim vitanute, tundavali labdaye. That when we begin to chant the holy name with our mouth, then all of a sudden, tunde tandavani, Krishna's name starts tandavani, starts dancing there. And then we have this desire, vitanute tundavali labdaye. We want to labdaye, we want to have many, many, many mouths. We want to have millions and millions of mouths. Karna kroda kadambani gatayate, karna vidubhyo spriham. And when the sound of Krishna's name enters into our ears, and karna vidubhyo spriham, we want millions and millions of ears. And chaita prangana sangani. So the name comes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings in one song, the name comes from the lips of Gurudev. It enters into my heart, it enters into my ears, excuse me. And then it enters into my heart, and it percolates like coffee percolates. And I begin thinking about it and contemplating on that name based on what I'm hearing from my Gurudev, based on the service that I'm doing for my Gurudev. And then that name comes out again from my mouth. And again it enters into my ears, but this time it has a different potency. And chaita prangana sangani vijayate sarvendriyanam kritim. When it enters a chaita prangana, that private place, chaita means the heart, prangana means that this private courtyard or private place, this private place in my heart. And sangani, it becomes a real companion then of myself. Vijayate sarvendriyanam, it conquers over all the senses. It conquers over the mind. No jane janite ki abdi amitai krishneti varnadvayi. And Rupa Goswami says, that I don't know how much nectar these two syllables, Krishna, have given. So this is our process. We take shelter of the instructions of Gurudev. We engage all of our senses in hearing Krishna Katha. We engage all of our senses in serving Krishna according to the instructions that Gurudev has given us. And by doing that, everything is solved. Everything becomes wonderful. And there's no problems at all. And we don't need to take shelter of any devas or devis, any demigods or anything. Everything is just fine, just by taking shelter of bhakti in this way from the instructions of Gurudev. And even if you're locked up in a terrible prison, like Chanda Ray, Krishnadas, if we just simply take shelter and we just remember the instructions of Gurudev, but we don't mix those instructions. Ete ananya-bhakti-kathā. We take pure shelter of those things. Doesn't mean we're a pure devotee, but you are a pure devotee in the sense that you're purely taking shelter. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, many times he said that all of my disciples are pure devotees. It doesn't mean they have no material desires, but they're pure devotees in the sense that they're not taking shelter, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, in his commentary on Bhagavad Gita 9:30, they're not taking shelter of the devatas, of karma, of jnana, of yoga. They're just taking shelter of bhakti. Hṛsīke govinda-sevā, na pūjiba devī-devā. Such an important thing. And this is an instruction for neophyte devotees. It's not an instruction for elevated devotees, because elevated devotees are already doing it. We have to take shelter of Krishna with all of our senses. Don't take shelter of anything else. Take shelter of this pure Krishna Katha, our Gurudev. Have firm faith, Krishna bhakti-candrika, sarva karma krita hoy. That if I just take shelter of bhakti, everything else is taken care of. I don't need to worry about anything else. And if I see some other solution, that viśeṣa sakali dambha, that's just pride. I'm just thinking, yes, I'm such an intelligent person. I can solve all the problems in ISKCON. I know who's pure and who's not. I know a solution. I'm going to drive out all the child molesters. I'm going to drive out all the cheaters and this and that. I have the vision to do that. That, Narottam Das Thakur says, please forgive me, but that's just dambha. That's just pride. You can't see it. And it's not going to be a solution. Rather, dekhite lāgaye vyathā. It's just going to cause pain in the heart for everyone. And even if you might make some social revolution, some French Revolution, where all the leaders were destroyed in the French Revolution, and a new crop came up, the same problems will be there again, because your so-called revolution is useless unless there's pseudo-bhakti there. So this is what Narottam Das Thakur is teaching us. He's already told us these same things. This is kind of a repetition, but here he's telling us that there's a problem if you try to take shelter of these other things. And it may seem to make a lot of sense that we've got to drive out the rascals, we have to expose all the nonsense, all the hypocrisy and things. But that's not going to solve the problem. Rather, dekhite ananya-bhakti-kathā. We have to take shelter of pure bhakti. Recently, on our Facebook page, I posted something which is a statement from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which we published previously in one of our Krishna Katamrita magazines. Let me see if I can bring this up here. Okay. I wrote some little comments about it too. Inspired by what Narottam Das Thakur is saying here. we wrote something about this. Let's see. I'll go ahead and read. This first thing, first few words are my reflection on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's and my kind of purport to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's words. And my comments are as follows. Fault finding, chastisement, and exposing cheaters is the work of Guru. The honest but unpalatable truth is that such work requires great purity and empowerment, without which the self-appointed reformer inevitably becomes the evil that they see in others, and the cycle continues. Real reform begins with me. Avoiding my own need for purification while pointing out the faults of others is simply duplicity and cheating. And then we have this beautiful statement from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which came from an article which was published in 1932 in a Harmonist magazine. And he said, the world stands in no need of any reformer. The world has a very competent person for guiding its minutest happenings. The person who determines that there's scope for reform of the world himself stands in need of reform. In other words, if you think there's problems in the world and needs to be fixed up, it means you have a problem. It means you need to be reformed because there's no problem. And he says the world goes on in its own perfect way. No person can deflect it, even the breadth of a hair, from the course chalked out for it by providence. When we perceive any change being actually affected in the course of events of this world by the agency of any particular individual, okay, when we see some change going on through some particular person, we must know very well that the agent possesses no real power at any stage. We see Srila Prabhupada did so many things. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did so many things. But he says we should know that the agent, Prabhupada or Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, doesn't possess real power. The agent finds himself driven forward by a force belonging to a different category from himself. That's divinity. Or as Krishna tells Arjuna in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, nimitta matram bhavasa visachin. Many people want to imitate Arjuna. They want to imitate Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Srila Bhaktisiddhanta or Srila Prabhupada, chastise the rascals and do this and that. But if they don't have the purity, if they don't have the instruction from Krishna, nimitta matram bhavasa visachin, and they don't have the purity to go along with that, then they can't be the instrument of the Lord. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta goes on. The course of the world, or what happens in the world, does not require to be changed by the agency of any person. Let me put that in another simpler way. What's happening in the world, it's not necessary for it to be changed by any particular inspiration from any particular person. What's really necessary, what is necessary is to change our outlook on this world. This was done for the contemporary generation by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya. It can only be known to recipients of his mercy. The scriptures declare that it's only necessary, the only necessary thing is to listen with an open ear mind to the name of Krishna from the lips of a bona fide devotee. That's all that's necessary. And then there's a symptom of that. There's a symptom of if we're hearing properly or not. What is the symptom? As soon as Krishna enters a listening ear, he clears up the vision of the listener, so the listener no longer has any ambition of acting like the reformer of any other person, because he finds that nobody is left without the very highest guidance. So that's the symptom that you're really hearing the holy name, that you no longer have any ambition that I'm going to change everybody. I'm going to solve all the problems in ISKCON. I'm going to drive out the rascals. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Because you see that everybody has the highest guidance. And then he says, in a beautiful way, it is therefore his own reform that he is increasingly able to realize by the eternally continuing mercy of the Supreme Lord. So the first thing is, if we want, as John Lennon sang once, so you say you want a revolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world, but you should change yourself first. So revolution has no meaning if we don't begin at home, if we don't change our heart, if we don't purify our heart. And that change of heart comes by simply hearing in a submissive way, just sitting down and really taking shelter of the holy name. And then something will happen, and you'll no longer be an independent person. Nimitta matram bhavasa visachin. You may become like Arjuna, and Krishna may directly dictate to you, you do this, you do that. And it's not happening through you, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, when we perceive any change being actually affected in the course of events of this world by the agency of any particular individual, we must know very well that the agent possesses no real power at any stage. The agent finds himself driven forward by a force belonging to a different category from himself. So this is real reform. And any other kind of reform is just hypocrisy and cheating. If it doesn't begin with hearing the holy name and taking shelter of the holy name and becoming empowered by the holy name. And then Krishna will dictate in the heart of the devotee, that pure heart of the devotee. And it won't be coming from him. It's not his power, but it's some other person. He'll be driven forward by a force belonging to a different category from himself. So this is what Narottam Das Thakur is indicating here. It's not that we're hippies. It's not that oh, we just chant Hare Krishna and we just sit around and we don't care if children are molested. We don't care if women are abused. We don't care if things go wrong in the society. Prabhu, I'm just chanting Hare Krishna. No, it doesn't mean that. It means we want real revolution. We don't want bogus revolutions. And any revolution that doesn't begin with a purified heart, then dekhite, lāgaye vyathā. Narottam Das Thakur said, it just causes pain in my heart. It causes me pain to see it because it's not a real solution. You may give more money to the gurukuls. You may have more reform in a stricter sense of who's going to become a gurukul teacher and this and this. But if you're not promoting Sudhanam bhajan, pure chanting of the holy name, then sooner or later, and probably sooner, your so-called reform is just going to fall into pieces and it's not going to mean anything. So hṛsīke, govinda-sevā, na pūjiba, devī-devā, eta ananya-bhakti-kathā. This is the instruction of Narottam Das Thakur, that we should just take shelter of Govinda with all of our senses and give up any other thing. Take shelter of pure Krishna Katha. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there and Lila Purushottam. The quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, certainly I'll be happy to put that in. So we lost Ujjvala Rasagya. I'm very sorry to see that. But I'd like to take a little time from the devotees to hear some reflections. Gorni Thai Prabhu, since it is right now, not so late yet, it's 9 o'clock, I think your time, is that right? 9:15?
Yeah, 9:15, not so late.
Would you like to share some reflections with us, Prabhuji?
Yeah, whatever you speak, it's a real truth. That also many times we heard this level of engagement in bhakti always. Still, every day there is a chance to attracted by some maya, by some things which is not the primary duty of a devotee who want to go back home, back to Godhead, want to go back to Lord Krishna. So we catched by, at least today I have this experience that I was reading email of my previous classmates, and they want to meet again, 50 anniversary of our gymnasium group. And of course, that's very, very happy. They know I am a devotee, but still there was some conversation, and one of the classmates just misunderstood something and become hurted. And I was thinking, okay, because I wrote something seemingly humorous, but he took it like personally and he became angry. So that's why I saw that, okay, what to do? Have to try to, change his mood. And I wrote a long letter for him to excuse. And then I started to meditate on how to prepare for this class. And then I found myself to study the World Chess Championship, because one of my friends is fond of chess. And I wasted at least half an hour watching a chess game. And it's so horrible, And then I found that that's what I'm doing. I can change them only only by my bhakti, which I have to be purified, have to develop, and not studying chess or other things. This is secondary. Maybe they help a little bit, but they will not get bhakti if I am not pure. So it's very true that we need every day some guide, some guard to protect our bhakti. So then I reflected to the Manashiksha, which is really helpful to find how to guide ourselves, like from the verses 4 to 7, beautiful advancement of the different level of guardians. And yes, you say that we always have to engage in bhakti, but if the prostitute of this fame or something other is dancing in the heart, it's not possible. So we have to kick out this prostitute, and in the meantime have to try to bath not in the urine of the ass, but the nectarian ocean of this katha. And yes, personal presence of devotees is makes much more easy. So we have this katha, is beautiful, it's very important, it's saving my life. And still, when it's not the katha, I am alone now in Mayapur. So I often I'm doing alone my jata. I'm working here, having a service. But no, I have to find some way to always have sangha every day and more, and that will save my life, and that will fulfill my Guru Maharaj desire that he wanted me to become a pure devotee. So thank you very much. That's my today's reflection.
Very time, Prabhu. You always have such nice, thoughtful reflections. I really appreciate it. Sadhu Sangha is all that we have. That's all that we have. There's so many things we can say about it.
And one other verse I found, you know very well, that's song that Tava Katamrita, Tapta Jivanam. You know that beautiful verse.
Yeah, this is our life, our amrit. It gives us life, and it takes away all the misery in the material world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I appreciate it. And how about Brajabanita? Would you like to share something?
Hare Krishna. I will try. I'm just making my homework in English class. I'm learning English also.
Your English is becoming better, I can see.
No, just to develop my English, to improve my English. Grammar and all this. I have vocabulary, but I need to make it larger. And also to understand how grammar works, because it's very difficult from other languages that I came touched with. I have few things that I wanted to tell, except that, my view about the dress and all this gopi dress and all this, how I see it, but it's really, I don't think it's not remind me nothing. I mean, dress and all this surface of outside things not remind me nothing. Only mood can remind me anything. What I wanted to tell you, it's first of all, I came across a few things like each of us in internet, and about the things that you say that we should only take care of our own bhajan and all this, that I absolutely agree with the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada also. But what to do if we are coming across with some older devotee who who empowered to sit on Vyasasana, and actually all that he flowing out from your Vyasasana, it's cheap propaganda. Like it sounds like he is actually the agent of some KGB or something like that. And what to do with the young devotees, with new devotees who came, innocent people who came and listened to all this bullshit? What to do with them? Of course, it's, for me, it's, I just look at this and I say, oh, okay, another one. So another one. But it's not bothering me. But what to do with really innocent people? Because they, all those people who came to the temples, for whom temples important place somehow, and they came to there and they think that they're bringing from there some purity, but they're actually not. And of course, I'm not going into it, but I cannot be blind about it. I can my own opinion about it. And I certainly never want to be in Sangha with such devotee or with such mood or with such group. This is the thing. And this is one thing. And another thing, actually, you understand that you come across with pure devotee of KGB and not pure devotee of Krishna. And another few things that I want to ask you, I just starting to read the 5th canto today, and story of Priyavrata, who was devotee, who served Lord and glorified him and Lord Brahma, and his wife helps him his whole life, and they got children, some of whom become devotee, were devotee from the birth, very strict devotees like brahmachari from the birth and so on. But in the life, even that he got very pure life with his wife, and where both of them were devotees, he just renounced everything and left his wife and the words, I'm just quoting, with who he was enjoying his feelings, and went to the forest or something like. What feeling? He was, he lived dharmic life. He was absolutely devotee in grihastha ashrama, and he was pure. So what does it mean actually that these things was bother me today? And another thing that you say about the instruction of guru, most of us, something like 55% of the devotees, which I know, never got any personal instructions. So actually they're following as myself, common instructions that Guru gave through his katha, and they are common for all devotees. I mean, for all devotees or my God brothers and sisters. So those three things that I want to tell. Thank you very much.
First of all, we should understand that Narottam Das Thakur, he's not like the Pope. That Krishna consciousness is not like the Russian, the Russian Church, Russian Orthodox Church, or something where we insist that people have to do this way or they're going to go to hell. Within our society, there's people, Krishna at the end of the Gita, he tells Arjuna, he says, now you do what you want to do. Everyone always has freedom. And in that freedom, Krishna also says in the Gita, we really don't have freedom in one sense because we're controlled by the modes of nature. And people are automatically going to behave in a certain way. So there's some people who are going to try to solve problems with warfare, with fighting, or with management, some with money, some with education, we're going to have, depending on the mode of nature that we're in, we're going to have a particular solution. And we don't say to people that you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't make that solution. Maybe that's inspired by Krishna. That's okay. That's your inspiration. But Narottam Das Thakur is giving us instructions that if we see some KGB Putana kind of person, which means, what does it mean? It means someone who's acting like a devotee, but they're not really a devotee. And they're trying to engage other people. If we see that and we want to fight with them, and the methodology, the system that we adopt to fight with them is the same kind of, is the methods of the KGB or the methods of Putana, that I'm going to expose them, I'm going to tear them down, they're rascals, then we become the problem ourselves. Then we inadvertently end up cheating other people. This is what Narottam Das Thakur is telling us. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be exposed, they shouldn't be driven out and whatever. But actually, Jiva Goswami, paradoxically, he says in the Bhagavatam in one commentary that Putana actually was doing service for Krishna. And in the same way, some KGB devotee may actually paradoxically be doing service in the sense that they tell people, read Bhagavad Gita. They're not really meaning that. That's not really coming from their heart. It's not spoken in that sense with such power of conviction, realization, but they're still telling people to chant Hare Krishna because they have to. That's part of their disguise. But inadvertently, then, Krishna is accepting them as a servant. And Srila Prabhupada saw that. And in one sense, that's all of the early devotees. That's all of us in our so-called preaching. Because we're all little putanas. We're all little KGB agents who have some other material desire. But Krishna is engaging us, Prabhupada's engaging us, and kindly accepting some service. Now, that doesn't mean that I want to run around and hear class from someone I think is a KGB agent, or that I want to take the remnants of food off their plate or something. I want to be careful. I don't want to hear from such a person. I want to keep some distance. But I'm not going to adopt the same materialistic attitude that they have, that, oh my God, we have to control everybody. That's their attitude. We have to control everybody. And we're going to do this insidious kind of thing.
No, I'm sorry. I don't say control, but I mean to enlighten it. I think it's okay if we can.
That's okay. But what does enlightenment mean?
It's meant to show it as it is. To show it as this is what.
To show the material nature to people is not enlightenment. To show Krishna to people, that's enlightenment. There's so much material nature. And we can show, we can take videos of people in the toilet. We can take videos of people in their bathrooms and in the restaurant and whatever, all the bad things they're doing. That's not enlightenment. Enlightenment means...
Yeah, but people in the toilet, in the bathroom, they are not calling themselves devotees, then they are not sitting on vyasasana, Guruji.
Enlightenment, never mind what they're sitting on. We want to give people Krishna. And it's not going to enlighten anybody by revealing the bad things that some people have done. It's not going to help the world because everybody's done bad things. And therefore, Prabhupada said, apichet sudaracharo, that everybody's done bad things. That's not our program.
The world it's not, but for society it must be clear. Society must know who people are sitting on. I think it's better.
Which is why I started with this comment, Bhajabanita, that we all have our freedom of choice. Narottam Das Thakur is not telling everybody, look, you have to chant Hare Krishna and that's it. He's not saying you shouldn't do some mundane revolution. You do that, but he's telling us, he's warning us. It's not going to solve your problems ultimately. That's what he's warning us. We just have to think about it, and then we make our own decision. And it's an individual thing. It's not something that we have to be forced by the church or this or that. That's my answer to your first question. And then about your second question, most people haven't gotten personal instructions from Guru. Well, Srila Prabhupada got very few personal instructions from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. My Guru Maharaj got very few personal instructions from Srila Prabhupada. But it's not a question of material space and time. Guru and disciple relationship are transcendental, and they're not subject, they're not controlled by material nature. It's not that, oh, I can only come in contact with Gurudev if I'm physically in touch with him, if I'm with him at that particular time, and otherwise it's hopeless. That's a materialistic perspective. And we should understand that the Vakya, the teachings of Gurudev, I want to make that one in my heart. That's our, and we do that by rendering service to Gurudev and by contemplating on the instructions of Gurudev. And Gurudev gives us instructions again and again. I saw with my Guru Maharaj, many times he wouldn't, and Prabhupada also, many times they would not give so many personal instructions to devotees because they were speaking in a general way. And if the devotees couldn't follow the general instructions in the Bhagavatam class, then what's the hope of them following something more specific? So first of all, we need to take shelter of those general instructions, which are Krishna's instructions. My Guru Maharaj used to say that I'm not saying anything. I'm just repeating Shastra. And so in that way, if we follow that, we'll have everything. The third thing you commented was about the devotee thing. That's not so important. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur even, he says several interesting things. One thing he says is that we should not try to judge a devotee by the external dress. Right? Because someone may be an exalted devotee, Bhishmadev, who knows how he's dressing, he's working in the court of Duryodhana, he's working for the demons. But he's a great devotee. You can't judge just by the externals with him. The second thing Bhaktivinoda says is in Jaiva Dharma, which Srila Purushottam Prabhu always reminds us of, how when the sannyasi Thakur, this person was a Mayavad sannyasi on the platform of Paramahamsa, came to Navadvip to become a Vaishnav. After some time, he didn't want to wear his Mayavad dress anymore. He was dressed as a Mayavadi sannyasi. He wanted to dress like a Vaishnav. So he approached his guru, the Vaishnavas, and said, Guru Maharaj, please, I want to dress like a Vaishnava. And they said, no, don't do it. It should come on the inside before the outside. And I think personally, this is one reason why this is such a controversy in our society, because so often we tell people the opposite. You should change the outside before you change the inside. But it doesn't work. It becomes just like a costume kind of contest. You work with costumes and makeup and things like that. And you understand that by putting on makeup, you can put makeup on a pig. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. What's the point of it? What's the point of dressing someone up in a dhoti or sari if they haven't changed their heart? And I really appreciate Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mood, which is also a similar thing which Devamrita Maharaj advocates in New Zealand. They discourage people from wearing dhoti or sari. They want to. People are coming, I want to wear a dhoti or sari. I said, no. You wait for some time until what's on the inside becomes more or less the same as on the outside. You wait, not just that you have a uniform or something. And then it has some meaning to it. It has some meaning to me, that kind of dress, because when I see it, I've spent a lot of time in Vrindavan. I've spent a lot of time in Mayapur and in Puri, and I've seen many sadhus there, and I've seen the culture there. I've taken prasadam in the houses of the Brijbasis. I've seen their kirtans, and I love them. They're so beautiful. They're so natural. And the dress is not so important, but that dress reminds me of them. That dress really belongs to them. It doesn't belong to those.
Yeah, but it's your experience, you see. It's very personal. It's your experience.
Therefore, Srila Prabhupada also, though, he wanted devotees to go to India every year and to go to the Dham And if we go there, we associate with Brijbasis and we see. Problem is, we're just associating with devotees in the temple, and a lot of times it's just a costume. And they may be a demon in the KGB Putana dressed in a dhoti, and maybe a pig wearing lipstick. And what's the value of it? And it becomes a disgusting kind of thing. And I agree with that. But it doesn't mean that the tradition is wrong. And therefore, Narottam Das Thakur, the commentary on Hari-bhakti-sudhodaya says that just by seeing someone who's imitating a devotee, who's dressed like a devotee, we get benefit from that. That's a beautiful thing. Okay, Prabhupada. Some things to think about. It's nothing to argue about. It's nothing we want to defeat someone, or this is right or this is wrong, because we're all little. Some people, they keep cats, and that's okay. Some people keep horses. Some people don't have any animals, and this and that. We're all a little different. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Harish Chandra Prabhu, would you like to share anything today? Nice to see you, Prabhuji. I think you came a little late, did you?
Hare Krishna. Do you hear me properly? I have bad connection.
Yeah, I can hear you very well. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, it's fantastic class today. Really, I'm nourishing every word. For me, it's really, I'm overwhelming the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati quote about the listening with open mind to bona fide Vaishnavas. It's for me like, aha, okay. I must do more properly it. Thank you for it.
Yeah, we all want to be the new jihadi. We all want to, because that's the business of the acharya. Srila Prabhupada comes and he tells the scientists, you're hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. and he chastises the devotees. And we think, yeah, I want to do that also. I remember when I was like 5 years old, we had a little playhouse, and sometimes we would dress up as an army officer or a policeman or a teacher, and we made some game like that. So as Brajabanita is pointing out too, dressing up in a dhoti and things, sometimes it's like a child pretending. And sometimes in our pretend, we want to play like I'm the acharya. And it causes problems. It's kind of cute. We tolerate it when children do that. We tolerate it when young devotees do that. But we don't really take it very seriously. When you see the child dress up like a policeman, we don't think they're really a policeman. When some new devotee thinks he's like the new acharya, we don't take it so seriously. We think anyway he's just a childlike person. As Prabhupada was saying in that letter to Bhakti Linwood, that we tolerate them. The young people, when they're first starting, sometimes they're a little passionate. Okay. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I appreciate it. Natalia, are you there? Would you like to share something today? Any prizes you want to
thank you very much for this class. It was very relevant because it is last 2 weeks I'm exactly receiving instructions from many sources exactly on this topic, just to delete like all my like, okay, how to say that I'm not sure in this path, this pure bhakti, and I received already, like, okay, I had a personal talk with Gurudev, and I had and I listened 2 days ago a lecture of Srila Prabhupada exactly on 177 verse. Yes, and I spoke also with one Mataji, who is like also who is giving some classes to me, and she spoke from the point of view of Rajavasis, and how to take shelter of Radharani, how they take shelter of Radharani, and also His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Goswami also gave some special talk to our team, how to put like to keep focus on pure bhakti, on Vaishnava Sadachar, and it's getting like so many instructions from so many, and like I have also some more sources. I started to read book on Gayatri mantras from Gurudev, and like it is just my mind is becoming so smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and like enthusiasm is growing bigger and bigger. So, thank you very much, and there were so many beautiful things which you said. It is really like I'm thinking now there are so many ways to engage our senses, and it is really like so many ways to feel our day every day with these services. So why to look for anything else?
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah, I remember the Gayatri book. My name's in the beginning of that. You notice that Maharaj gave me a copy and asked me to do some editing and make suggestions. Yeah, that's our life. We came here to take shelter of Krishna and Krishna Nam. We didn't come to take shelter of an institution. We didn't come to take shelter of a dress style or a hairstyle or something. We came to take shelter of the holy name and Krishna Katha, and we should always remember that. It's very, very important. I'm very fortunate. Let's see. Jai Gaur Prabhu, would you like to share anything?
Yes, Ru. Thank you for the katha. It was very sweet. I'd like to particular point just you made at the beginning about the patient insists on taking medicine instead of fried foods, and this is just sanity. I really like that. I had a question based on all this, like one may develop desire to do pure bhakti and kind of uncontaminated by so many different things, but then how do we avoid the tendency that might crop up? You're seeing like other people, maybe you're thinking, oh, these people are taking shelter of other things that aren't pure bhakti, and then that reformer mentality can creep in with you also, like with oneself. You try to reform others to do pure bhakti instead of taking shelter of varnashram dharma or something. So how do we, avoid that mentality kind of creeping in?
Well, we need to associate with pure devotees, either directly by hearing or in the form of their katha, in the form of their teachings, and we need to do that on a regular basis. And then our shoka moha bhaya, our fear, lamentation, and illusion, they go away. And our purusha abhiman, this attitude that I'm the controller of things, gradually goes away. And we see that all that we have to do is just go out and just sit down and chant. And just sitting down and chanting in New York City, you're solving all the problems in the whole world. And it's the best thing that you can do. And you don't have to do any politics. In fact, if you do politics, it's going to weaken everything. We just have to have firm conviction in the teachings of Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our previous acharyas, and just take shelter of it. And we need to drink that. Pibata Bhagavatam, Rasamali, Bhagavatam says Pibata, we want to drink the Bhagavatam. So that gives a sense that there's a sense of completeness. Because when you drink something, at a certain point, you're satiated. You're full.
Yeah. And
when we're full, then there's no room for anything else. As Sri Dayananda Maharaj once said in a lecture, it was very nice. He said, it's like our mind and heart are like a garage. And if the garage is empty, then there's space for so many different things, and there's so many different things that be coming in that. But if you have a beautiful Krishna car, big car parked in that garage, there's no room for anything else. So we want to park our Krishna Katha, we want to park this Krishna Nam in our mind and heart and these senses, so that there's just no room for anything else. And then we're fully satiated and we're peaceful. We're not agitated, that we don't see any problems in the world. The main problem is being solved. We're chanting the holy name. And then at that time, as Srila Bhakti-siddhanta says, if Krishna wants you to be an instrument, Krishna can act through you. But as long as I'm acting as an independent person, and I see this thing needs to change, this is a problem, that's a problem, then the real problem is me. Because my consciousness is not properly aligned. And I can't really be an instrument until I first of all purify myself and align myself with the holy name in this process. Is that okay?
Yeah, Prabhu, that's really nice. Thank you. It reminds me, I was hearing this Katha by Gurudev the other day, and he was quoting, what is it? Kari para upakar, that verse from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or that verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, was saying anyone who's born in India, and he was making a distinction that Srila Prabhupada doesn't necessarily bring up in his translation, but he was saying first you should make your life perfect, and then you should go and share with others. So that's what you said just reminded me of that. Like, you sit down and chant Hare Krishna and all the problems are solved, and then later, if you need to be used as an instrument for whatever service later, Krishna will do
and
that
we're
thing.
not disturbed, as Prabhupada wrote in his letter to this Lynn Ludwig, we're not disturbed that there's some fanatics. And Prabhupada said that because some young, inexperienced devotees, they don't understand, but they're trying. And he's trying to engage them. He's trying to engage all of us for our purity. Our problem is that we think that when Prabhupada tells us to go out and distribute books, that it means I'm a pure devotee. And it means that I should give instruction to everybody else. And this is a Bodo Maya Ranga. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings in one song, this is Maya's big joke, that I'm going out and I'm giving instructions to everybody else. Okay, we had a nice talk yesterday. There's a lot of things. Oh my God! I mean, it's one of the most exciting things in my life going on right now with Jagannath Puri and the Doer project. We've got some very, very powerful people in the government, some very powerful scholars, some very powerful sadhus working with us. A lot of things happening with books and different projects, and exciting projects. And one of the things I was speaking with viśeṣa Gopal Prabhu, who's our project manager there now, we had a long meeting yesterday, was about our Jagannath Puri Harinam Seva Sangha. And I told him, although it's not technically part of it, I consider it a very important part of Gaura. I want to support it always. And he was mentioning to me too, he loves Harinam, and he says, you see the people in Puri, when they see the Westerners chanting, they cry. Like, these guys, they're pure Vaishnavas, they're pure devotees of Jagannath. And so I was saying,
I'm so much looking forward to it, Prabhu. I'm May 1st, I have a ticket to New York, so I'm about to move on from Michigan, headed to New York, and then after that, the spell there, then we'll be in Puri.
All this Katha reminds us of Ram Roy Prabhu and his kirtan in New York, and that reminds us of Hindu. And having said that, maybe we should turn to Srila Purushottam Prabhu at this time and see if he has any reflections. And Srila Purushottam, you still on the train?
Yes, I am. No, I'm not sure how it's gonna work. How's the sound?
Sounds okay.
Okay. Well, I can't really much reflect because I was very much in and out because of the fluctuation of the connection. So I will definitely have to hear the whole thing again. But what I want to say actually is that this towards the end, this quote about the reformers was really a personal instruction, because just recently I was induced here in Czech in kind of a strange situation, and I was asked by few devotees to help with the reforming someone or something. And after 15 years, I started to feel like, yeah, maybe there is some entitlement to reform. And it was so pacifying to be so nicely reminded by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that it's none of my business. So I really, that really helped a lot, because I was really considering, okay, what steps should be done and like that. And I was already like immersed in that. And I have to say that this quote really done its work, actually. It just saved me from troubles.
It's such an thing to me recently in my personal life. Something happened which hasn't happened in a long, long time, and that is that some devotees appealed to me to help with a management solution in one temple in ISKCON. There's been some scandals and some very bad behaviors going on, and we were requested to come in and try to help solve the problems. And really, there's just some bad problems and some bad exploitation and things that are going on. But I told them in the meeting, I said, I've always had a problem with this, because the only solution that I really have faith in, I don't have management solutions. The solution I have faith in is getting a human being. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have some management activities. Maybe pick out some bad person, but it has to all be in connection with the whole room. Otherwise, it's just not going to be successful.
Yeah, that's the trouble when we get entangled with all the relative angles of view. We can really get entangled, actually. But then Acharya comes, he hits the table and says, this world is in no need of reform. Who thinks this world needs reform himself. That's so liberating, actually, I have to say.
That's a beautiful way to put it. I also find it very liberating. It takes the whole weight off your shoulders. Oh, I don't have to
the thing is, if at least one would be of that nature, like inclination for the Kshatriya position, like dealing with the management, then maybe one could have any hope that he could do any help. But I don't find that nature in myself, and I'm quite sure I would just end up in troubles again.
Yeah, I was there some years ago by perfect fate. I became one of his managers and had to deal with all that. I don't solution. Okay, thank you for this. Krishna Kun,
Thank you. I'm looking forward actually to listen to the katha again, so that I can really relish all the nectars that were said. Thank you.
Krishna Kun, you need to
articulate and speak very loudly. I think it will be fine.
Can you hear her okay, Natalia? Yes or no?
Yes, I think you can.
Okay.
Thank you. I really appreciated hearing about engaging all the senses in Krishna. And especially this last point about how if we do not promote Shuddha Bhakti and Shuddhanam Bhajan, then any so-called reform will fall into pieces. And that's such a good warning for us at this time, especially when we were asked to help at this particular place to solve the problem. It's kind of, we can't do anything, but we can at least promote Shuddhanam Bhajan, even if we can't chant it ourselves, but at least we can promote it. I also appreciated this point about, well, what you said, Krishna-bhakti-candrika, that any other solution, any astrology or gemstones or health advice and different health meditations and other things, which sometimes we may even want to take up with the idea that it will help me practice bhakti. Like our motivation may not be objectionable, but then it's actually just dambha. It's just pride that we think that we have a better solution than the holy name, and it will just lead to further problems. And it's a difficult one for me to see the demarcation line, because when our Gurudev spoke about this in Bhubaneswar, and he said how we don't go to doctor, we chant Hare Krishna. And devotees asked him, do you go to the doctor? Of course.
Of course.
If you have any comments on that.
Yeah, there's so many instructions. Srila Prabhupada also told devotees that sometimes devotees say, well, Prabhupada, we just chant Hare Krishna and that'll solve all the problems.
Management.
And Prabhupada sometimes got angry with them and said, no, you also have to do some management. So how do we reconcile these two things? I would suggest that chanting Hare Krishna, if we're really chanting Hare Krishna, we're going to become purified, and we'll hear Prabhupada's voice. And it doesn't mean that we should be passive. Chanting Hare Krishna is a very active thing, but it's not speculative. And we should act according to what Guru and Krishna have given us to do. Otherwise, it becomes sahaja-like. Otherwise, there's just so many people who want to control everybody else. As soon as they make you the temple president, then you think, yes, I can control everyone, and I'm here to solve all the problems. And it's the same exact mentality that the self-appointed reformer has. That I can control everybody, I can solve the problems and things. It's just two sides of the same coin. I don't want to associate with either one of them. They're both kind of cute children doing like that, dressing up like army officers or policemen or something. It's a game. But I don't take it very seriously unless I see some deep understanding of bhakti in their behavior.
That's a nice point, that if we chant and actually hear, then we may be inspired to act in a particular way.
And it also means too that maybe Krishna wants them to dress up like an army officer, like an army man, or a policeman. Maybe Krishna wants them to do this thing. That's fine. That's their realization. All that I'm sharing in this class today is what our acharyas say and what Narottam Das Thakur says. How someone applies that, that's going to be up to them, according to their own particular individual thing. I'm not the seer. I can't say who's right and who's wrong. And some jihadi person wants to come and smash all the people. Or maybe they're inspired for that. Fine. But I'm going to look at them. And if they're not speaking about the holy name, if that solution's not there, then I have a very hard time taking it seriously for myself.
But my reflection was more to express my own dilemma about the application of Krishna Bhakti Kali Sava Karma Kita.
Yeah.
But one thing that was also very much touching to me was how kind Krishna is. That he says that I can never give up anyone who listens to my katha or speaks my katha, or who loves my katha. I think it was these three, right? Someone who speaks about me, hears these topics, and who has some love for these topics.
Remembers me, yeah.
And I can never give these up. I can never give them up. And I mean, he's really a person.
And it also helps us too. I remember when I first joined, there was one devotee who was like, I considered him like a walking Bhagavatam. He knew maybe tens of thousands of verses anyway, I think. So many verses. And I just always respected. I felt like I'm hearing from the Bhagavatam, because whenever he would speak, he would quote. But at a certain point, there was a big scandal with him. It turned out that he was engaged in some illicit relations with someone else's wife and things. And it was a little hard for me to digest, I have to admit. But now in retrospect, I still respect that person. Not because of the bad things that he did. And I want to stay away from those things. I want to keep my wife away from him. And whatever. But I appreciate the Bhagavatam. And he's speaking like that, and I'm not his judge. Krishna's his judge. And it's a wonderful thing that he's speaking the Bhagavatam.
But that's exactly what I was marking, how kind the Lord is. And then there was this other quote where you quoted, I think it was Vishwanath, I'm not really sure, that the Lord is captured even by someone who just has a desire to hear the Bhagavatam. He's not yet hearing it, but he has the desire. And then there was this other quote that even seeing someone who imitates the feelings, I mean feelings or dress, Vajravanita will get upset if I get into that.
She has a reason to be upset about it.
Yeah.
We shouldn't.
But my point is that not just the dress, but the feelings. How many times we talk about these sahajiyas and this, but even seeing someone who imitates the feelings, even an imitation of bhakti, is beneficial for us to see. At least we see what we don't want to be, but also we see what direction we want to go into.
I know sometimes it doesn't happen very often in the West, very rare. But in India, sometimes I'm in some place outside the Dham, like Delhi, or Kolkata or something, where most everybody dresses in Western clothes and they're not really Vaishnavas. But I see someone in a dhoti. And a lot of times that's a common dress in India to this day amongst villagers. And when I see it, and I remember sadhus in the Dham, and I feel inspired. And then sometimes I say something, and they're just a common villager, and they're not, and I'm a little disappointed. And then other times, I remember, I think I was with you once in Kolkata. We were on a subway, and we were dressed in dhoti and sari, and someone saw us and said, "Radhe, Radhe," and it was such an ecstatic thing to be in Kolkata, mass the armpit of the universe, and have someone say Radhe, Radhe to you because of the way we were dressed. That gave me some inspiration. So that's a personal thing. How we dress is a very, very personal thing. And Prabhupada always treated it like that. Part of what I think Brajabanita is unhappy with, and I agree with her 100%, is when it becomes a dress code for any institution and you make it a standard that everybody has to do, and you judge people by that dress. That's horrific. That's just so bad.
Let's say this is the smallest defect of the institution, the dress, the smallest one.
And I love the story of Chanda Ray. It's my all-time favorite because of that Nam Nishta. It's just such a powerful thing. I'm sure everybody marked that.
And as we would say in America, Chanda Ray was a bad dude. He killed that elephant with his bare hands after fasting for a few weeks or whatever. All right. I think we should go ahead and stop there. So thank you all so much. I think, let me just look on our calendar real quick. I think something's happening next week. We may be in
no, we are good for next week.
Next week is fine. All right. And the Shinga Chaturdas is coming up. Well, anyway, we got a few weeks. Next 3 weeks.
We are good for the next 3 weeks. After that, we are not.
Then we'll be going to Hungary, to Budapest, and then we'll be going to Ukraine. And maybe Brajabanita will come to Ukraine. I don't know.
Will she?
I don't know. We'll see.
Are you going to come?
I don't know. It's a little far for me. For now, I don't see possibility to move anywhere. But let's see. I don't know. Where is it? It will be. It will be in the West Ukraine, I think.
West Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's not going to be in Eastern Ukraine.
It's not
in I don't know. Let's see.
We'll see. But it's Western Ukraine.
So thank you so much. Such a special
Thank
thing.
you.
I'm not we're just a facilitator. We're just doing service for our Gurudev. And all we do is we just come together. We have a system. We're just following our system to repeat hari-katha. It doesn't belong to us. And it's such a wonderful thing to do it with such a wonderful group of thoughtful devotees. I really appreciate everybody's comments and important things. Thank you all so much. My humble pranams. Vanchakopadarubhischa, kripa sindhu bhyevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo, vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Nandakoti